I thought my record was good for a century. The words of George Camsell, who in 1927 scored a record 59 goals in a single league season. It barely lasted a year. On May 5th, 1928, in the final game of the season, Everton centre-forward Dixie Dean stood only a hat-trick away from beating that record. He did it, of course. We all know that. His new record of 60 league goals in a single season is the stuff of legend, and it's yet to be broken in the English game. It was Dean's remarkable achievement, but let's not forget that playing alongside him that day were 10 others, and a host of other players that season who helped to make his ambition a reality. So who exactly were the 11 men who stood on the Goodison Park pitch for Everton that day, as Dixie Dean entered football folklore? And what are their stories? Goalkeeper. Arthur Davies. Everton's keepers had a rough time in the 1927-28 season. Welshman Arthur Davies started the season in the reserves, but he became Everton's first-choice keeper after number 1 Ted Taylor got badly injured around Christmas time. Even Davies needed backup, with Harry Hardy also playing in 6 matches, and even fullback Jack O'Donnell had to go in goal on occasion. In total he made 10 league appearances and played in 7 of the 8 final matches, helping Everton collect 14 points from the last 18 in the title run-in. He was a tall, reliable keeper, and he was seen as a sound stopper who distributed the ball confidently. He didn't have his best day in the final match, though. In the second minute, Arsenal scored after the ball went straight through his hands. Then later on there was a mix-up with his defence that led to a routine back pass ending up in his own net. Davies later played for Exeter, where he's fondly remembered as a club legend. Sadly, he wouldn't get to have much of a life outside of football, tragically passing away suddenly from peritonitis at age just 35. Fullback. Warney Cresswell. Everton's captain and the calming presence at the back was England defender Warney Cresswell, the prince of fullbacks. He joined Everton from Sunderland and quickly became the natural leader of the side. He wasn't a tough tackler. He used intelligence and composure to snuff out danger before it developed. Nicknamed the Iceberg, he was unflappable and rarely outsmarted, and had the uncanny technique of being able to just shepherd attackers away from goal, only making a tackle as a last resort. He led Everton out for the final game in front of a huge Goodison crowd, and lifted the league championship trophy a few hours later. He would also win 7 caps for England. I selected him for my hypothetical squad for the 1930 World Cup. Did he make the starting lineup? The link to that video is in the description if you want to find out. After his playing days he managed with Port Vale, Northampton Town and Dartford, and later retired to run a pub in Sunderland before his death in 1973. Fullback. Jack O'Donnell. Someone who certainly wasn't Prince-like was Cresswell's partner Jack O'Donnell. O'Donnell was one of the great unsung figures of that Everton side. He was one of only 2 players to appear in every single league match of the title-winning season. He was tough, direct and strong in the tackle, a menace to any forward, but was also noted for posing a goal threat himself. He scored a penalty in the 7-0 win over West Ham, and he even filled in goal on a few occasions when the keeper got clattered. The final game was a difficult one for him. A misunderstanding with Arthur Davies led to an own goal, but his place in history was assured. Where Cresswell was Mr. Reliable, Jack was rather more bohemian in his approach to the game. He'd often miss training for various reasons, coming up with all manner of elaborate excuses. He had a colourful and troubled post-football life, notably serving a prison sentence and disappearing for 2 days to avoid his estranged wife and children. His later playing days included spells with Blackpool, Hartlepool and a spell in the League of Ireland before he passed away whilst living back in the North East, aged 55. Right half. Jerry Kelly. The untiring work rate of Scotsman Jeremiah Kelly was key to the engine room of Everton's title-winning side. He made 40 league appearances and only missed 2 matches all season. He wasn't a glamorous player, but he was exactly the sort of midfielder a successful team needs. He worked hard, broke up play, and helped to keep the side balanced. He was part of the half-back line that had to deal with some serious pressure, and he was praised for the way he kept things steady, keeping Arsenal talisman Charlie Buchan quiet all game. He received a championship medal as his reward, though he was overlooked for his country. After Everton, he had spells at Carlisle United, in France with Rennes, at Glentoran and Dunfermline Athletic. He passed away back in Scotland in 1962. For years his grave had no marker, until the Everton Heritage Society stepped in to ensure he had a deserving memorial. Centre half. Hunter Hart. Kelly's fellow Scotsman Hunter Hart was one of the best players in Everton's half-back line that season. He made 41 league appearances, missing only one match in the whole campaign. He was the sort of defender who could dominate a game, without making a big song and dance of it. He was praised by his fellow players as the best of half-backs, and was often trusted with the job of marking the opposition's danger men. He also had a personal role in Dixie Dean's development, serving as somewhat of a mentor. Dean had suffered from nerves before away matches, and Hart would often read him newspapers to help him to sleep. Hart had a long career at Everton, but unfortunately he'd leave under a cloud after admitting to stealing money from a petty cash fund whilst working as a coach. He passed away after collapsing whilst working on a ship in Ellesmere Port in 1952. He was 54. Left half, Albert Virr. Dixie Dean got all the headlines that season with his 60 league goals, but arguably left half Albert Virr scored the most important goal that season. On 31st March against Sunderland, he headed home from a corner to make it 2-0. Everton had a barren spell mid-season without a win, and that result was the catalyst to a run of 5 wins from their final 7 games. He was a tough, resourceful half-back. He would find his football career cut short the following season, at age 27, after getting a severe injury, requiring the cartilage to be removed from his knee. Seeing the writing on the wall, he studied for a second career in education, and became a beloved teacher and headmaster at Dingle Vale School in Liverpool. He passed on in 1959, amidst loving tributes from his ex-colleagues and pupils. Outside right, Ted Critchley. The fleet-footed Ted Critchley was one of the main reasons Dixie Dean's record was possible in the first place. He was pacey, energetic and constantly willing to run at defenders, and his end product was his pinpoint crosses for Dean to head home. He made 40 league appearances and scored 5 goals of his own that season, but his importance went far beyond those numbers. He provided the corner in the second minute of the final game for Dean to get the first goal. He was also close to scoring himself, striking the post in the second half. Critchley later had a long career at Everton and won 2 First Division titles, the Second Division title after sticking with them following their shock relegation in 1930, and 2 Charity Shields before moving on to Preston North End and Port Vale. He remained a guest of honour at Goodison Park right up to his death in 1996, after seeing his beloved Toffees lift the FA Cup one last time the previous year. Inside right, George Martin. Someone who arrived much later to Dixie Dean's party was inside forward that day, George Martin. He arrived at Everton from Hull in March of the same year, but he didn't take long to make an impact. Everton needed fresh ideas in attack after injuries had weakened the side, and Martin gave them exactly that. He was clever, methodical and intelligent with the ball, and quickly built a strong understanding with Dixie Dean. He scored a few himself in the run-in, including a crucial winner against Burnley, and was a major part of the late-season surge that won Everton the title. In the final game, he was involved in the first goal, heading Critchley's corner on for Dean to finish. Martin later had a long career in management, including spells at Newcastle United, Luton Town and Aston Villa. A well-known polymath, he had an arts degree, played a variety of sports to a high standard, and even had a decent singing voice as well. A man who could truly do it all. He remained a fondly remembered figure at the clubs he graced. Inside left, Tony Weldon. Alongside George Martin at inside forward was one of the most important attacking players in Everton's side that season. Fellow Scotsman Tony Weldon made 38 league appearances and scored 8 goals. He scored on the opening day against Sheffield Wednesday, and he was there for much of that title run. He was a clever and skillful inside forward, described as a canny worker with excellent touch and balance. He made his mark in the final game against Arsenal too, nearly winning the game late on with a shot that was blocked. Weldon later played for Hull City, West Ham and Rochdale, and he ended his career humbly as a coal miner back in Croy before he passed away in 1953. Outside left, Alex Troup. Wee Troupy may have been small in stature, but his influence on the team was gigantic. A veteran in 1928, he was one of only 2 players to appear in every match of the championship winning campaign, and he was one of the most consistent supply lines for Dixie Dean. Dean himself said that the tricky winger had a hand in nearly 2/3 of his 60 league goals that season. In the final game, he delivered the corner that Dean headed home to break the record. Troup had a long career at Dundee and Everton, and earned 5 caps for Scotland, though he often found his opportunities limited behind Rangers legend Alan Morton. Troupy was very much a trooper, playing much of his later career with a shoulder injury that would often cause it to pop out of its socket during a match. He retired back in Scotland and passed away in 1952 after suffering from cancer. Centre forward, Dixie Dean. And last but not least, we have the man himself. 21-year-old William Ralph Dean was the undisputed star of the show. Nicknamed Dixie, a nickname he hated incidentally, he grew up a true blue Everton supporter, but actually started his career at nearby Pensby and Tranmere Rovers. Early in his career, he fought back to recover from a serious motorcycle accident that had doctors doubting he would even ever play again. Metal plate in his skull, he came back stronger than ever. Everton secretary-manager Tom McIntosh went out of his way to sign the prodigal talent, eventually getting his man for £3,000 in 1925. He hit the ground running in 1927, scoring in every match from the start of the season until 15th of October. By January, he'd already broken Everton's existing scoring record. By March, he'd broken the First Division record too. By the time he reached the final day, he had 57 league goals, and had George Camsell's record from the previous year firmly in his sights. He scored twice in the first 5 minutes to level that record, and then headed home from Troup's corner late on to make it 60. Dean himself maintained that he scored 100 goals that season, if you count cup games, internationals and guest appearances. It remains a record to this day by some distance. Tommy Lawton, Nat Lofthouse, Stan Mortensen, Jimmy Greaves, Alan Shearer. None of them have come close. In fact, 49 is the closest total, scored by Tom Waring of Aston Villa in 1931. Dean himself even has second place with 45 4 years later. You'll notice these high totals come in quite quick succession. There's a reason for this. Not to take anything away from Dixie Dean, but the years following 1925 were a playground for pacey, physical strikers like him. In 1925, the offside rule changed from requiring 3 defenders between the attacker and the goal to 2. Until then, it was very easy for teams to thwart attackers by essentially just playing with one fullback in their own half. Any striker who tried running onto a long ball would be caught offside 9 times out of 10. The change led to a glut of goals from centre forwards as the tactics and dynamics of football changed overnight. Suddenly, teams built around pacey wingers with deadly crosses and physically dominant centre forwards had a huge advantage. Strikers like Dixie Dean took full advantage of their newfound supply lines and relative acres of space in the box, whilst the now defensively flawed 2-3-5 formation struggled to adapt. Many strikers benefited, but Dean was still the undisputed king. Bill, as he always preferred to be called, stayed with Everton through the years that followed, scoring 383 goals in 433 appearances for the club, as well as 18 in just 16 caps for England. What a shame England didn't enter the World Cups in the 1930s, with Dean leading the line. He fittingly passed away at Goodison Park whilst watching the Merseyside derby in 1980. He's now honoured with a statue outside of the ground and a place in the Hall of Fame. Tom McIntosh was the man at the helm. He was Everton's first full-time salaried secretary, picking up many of the duties of a modern manager. He'd already helped to build the structure that allowed Everton to compete at the top, and when injuries hit, he was the one who helped to bring in the right reinforcements. He signed George Martin from Hull, and helped to bring in Jimmy Steen and Jimmy Dunn as the season wore on and took its toll. Despite the record-breaking outcome, it was a long and gruelling season, and McIntosh helped to hold it all together and mentor the team to glory. He died in 1935 while still in office, but he left behind a club that had just won its 3rd league championship. Dixie Dean and many others considered him a father figure, and a huge influence on their careers. There were other players who deserve a mention too. Ted Taylor was the first choice goalkeeper for much of the season. Dick Forshaw and Bobby Irvin also played their part in attack, before the latter left the club early in the season. After a tough battle, it was a season that ended with a title, a record, and a place in football folklore. If you want more stories from football's forgotten past, then subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who appreciates the history of the beautiful game. Thank you for watching. Why not find out who'd be joining Dixie Dean and Warney Cresswell for England at the 1930 World Cup?